updates on the earthquake and spy balloons, plus Sniffer squirrels, seagulls versus drones, and the Spaniard who bears it all.
Over here! Hey, listen up!
Newsy-paloozy. Hello, I'm your host, Leela Shiv Shankar Prickett, and as ever, I'm joined by the big story explainer, sound effects finder, otherwise known as my mama.
Hello, I'm Lindy Prickett, and this is Newsy-paloozy, the coolest pool of news and information.
That's right, it's a busy and pretty wacky week of world news. First, we'll have updates on the rescue operation after that massive quake that rocked Syria and Turkey, as well as the latest on the Chinese-US spy balloon story. Plus, move over sniffer dogs. There's another animal with some smell power that's being used to sniff out drugs in China. In Portugal, it's the case of seagulls versus drones as authorities turn to technology to help tackle their angry bird problem. And in Spain, one man takes a look at the law and realizes he's free to walk around completely, well, you'll just have to listen to the end to hear what. Alrighty then, let's dive on in. First up, it's
the big news story
of the week.
Well, we should really begin the podcast with the latest updates on the big news from last week, as there have been important developments.
Cue the sting, Mama.
Go on, give me a top-up, please. It's top-up time.
Top-up time.
Top-up time.
Top-up time.
Top-up time.
Top-up time.
Now. Yeah, now.
It's top-up time. When we did a deep dive into last week's 7.8 magnitude earthquake that rocked Turkey
and neighboring Syria, a country already beaten down because of a civil war that's almost 12 years old.
That's right. Well, when we went to publish the podcast, the death toll was at over 8,000.
Which is completely horrible.
Well, I'm afraid to say it's even worse, as rescuers could only do so much, and well, it's become clear that more like 4 times that amount of people have been buried underneath the rubble and couldn't be saved.
Like over 35,000 people.
And now questions are being asked at super high levels of government about the constructions of buildings. The building codes in Turkey meet current earthquake engineering standards, at least on paper. But a lot of people say they aren't always enforced in reality.
Which some say explains why so many buildings toppled over like a house of cards.
Well, now over 131 people are already under investigation for constructing buildings that don't meet the right standards.
And now another top-up on another big story from last week.
U.S. fighter jets shot down 3 more airborne flying objects, including one over Michigan's Lake Huron, which had supposedly passed over sensitive U.S. military sites.
This comes a week after the massive Chinese surveillance balloon, which traveled across the entire country, was shot down off the coast of South Carolina.
And neighboring Canada has also shot down an object shaped like a cylinder, floating in the sky. For its part, China's foreign ministry is now accusing the U.S. of flying high-altitude balloons over its airspace, more than 10 times since the beginning of the year.
You know that expression, Big Brother is watching you?
Yeah, I certainly do. It comes from the famous book by George Orwell called 1984.
Well, maybe it's really Big Balloon is watching you.
You got a point there, girl. All right, staying with China now, we have another fantastical story. So we've all heard of sniffer dogs, right?
Sure, the dogs at airports that go up and smell everyone's luggage, and sometimes people too. Trying to sniff out anything you're not supposed to be carrying on planes, like plants or animals, or more so, illegal drugs.
That's right. Well, you're not gonna believe what animal is being recruited for the same kind of job.
Oh, I know the answer, and it's totally nutty.
You said it. The newest members of an anti-drug police squad are squirrels.
Cray-cray and cute as this sounds, it's no joke.
Yep, they're small, agile, and quick. That's why police in the southwestern Chinese city of Chongqing are training 6 Eurasian red squirrels to sniff out drugs.
It's part of a national program to see if animals other than dogs can be used in drug-busting operations.
Well, squirrels are special rodents when it comes to smell. Did you know they can smell food under a foot of snow?
Well, if we're sharing fab facts about these nutty creatures, did you know that a newborn squirrel is only about an inch long? Adorable. And get this, their front buck teeth, which are equally adorable, never stop growing.
Yeah, that's a common trait of most rodents, the word of which actually comes from the Latin word rodere, which means to gnaw.
But hold on. Dogs sniff and bark to let their minder know they found something. What will the little squirrels do?
Oh, they'll scratch their minders, of course.
OMG! Too cute!
What's that? I'll tell you what. That's the halftime bell, which means it's time to hear what's making news around the rest of the world. Hold on tight. It's
Around the World in 80 Seconds.
Hold tight.
New Zealand declares a state of emergency after Cyclone Gabrielle causes huge ocean swells, widespread flooding and landslides, forcing people to evacuate their homes and leaving many stranded on rooftops. The Super Bowl championship of American football might be over. Congrats, Kansas City Chiefs, for defeating the Philadelphia Eagles. But now the real contest begins as people debate their favorite commercial played during the game, which was watched by 113 million people. The world's most famous diamond won't be worn by Britain's Queen Camilla during the coronation of her husband, King Charles. India has long claimed the 105-carat Kohinoor diamond as theirs, and many believe the new king doesn't want to start a diplomatic row. And it's official. Pat, a mouse in California, is named the oldest mouse on Earth by the Guinness Book of World Records at 9 years and 209 days old. Pretty impressive for a rodent that weighs as much as 3 pennies.
I do love that rap of what's making headlines elsewhere in the world, Mama. It's rather wobbly-wobbly-zippity-zappity.
Okay, or maybe it's just whippity-wappity-zippity-zappity.
Oh, no, it's definitely wobbly-wobbly-zippity-zappity.
Oh my gosh. Okay, now it's time for... It's the call of nature.
Nature.
Get on your safari suit
Or squeeze into your scuba gear.
and get ready to hop into a Jeep.
Or a submarine.
Submarine.
Because Mother Nature is calling.
Nature.
So everybody has probably heard a thing or two about Angry Birds, right?
Sounds familiar.
Well, I'm not talking about the video game. Oh no, but the real thing.
Oh.
So how many times have you been at the beach and someone next to you, usually a city slicker, thinks it's a good idea to feed the seagulls?
Oh yeah, dumb move.
Exactly. The first seagull might be cute, but soon... It's like a horror movie. With a whole flock of seagulls bobbing up and down. And some of them getting quite, nasty.
Not fun at all.
Well, apparently that's what it's like in the Portuguese city of Porto. A lot of the time.
Yikes.
Never fear, the drones are here. Yes, a plan to combat the pesky and aggressive birds is underway.
Oh, what is it?
See, you can't just take the eggs away. For a start, most are in high, hard-to-reach places. But also, the birds would just quickly produce more eggs.
Ah, more eggs, more birds, more problems.
So instead, Porto authorities are using drones to spray the nest with oil.
Wait a minute, they're using drones to spray the nest with oil?
Yes, oil. This stops the eggs from hatching, believe it or not. But the mother bird is unaware her eggs have been neutralized and goes on sitting on them.
Oh, I see. If they just took the eggs away, she'd quickly go and make more. But instead, she thinks she's hatching eggs. Clever. But I would think when eventually she finds out, that would make for more angry birds.
Well, you think, but it does slow down the rate of reproduction, so they're hoping it will help, along with making those who feed the birds pay a big fine.
Oh, now that's a good idea.
And finally, let's see what the Lucky Dip machine has for us this week.
Step right up.
Have a go at the Lucky Dip machine.
The Lucky Dip machine.
What's it going to be today, eh?
An oddball, no doubt.
An oddball, no doubt.
Well, let's say the story's a little bare this week. Quite literally.
And warning, if you find the idea of someone bearing it all, in the name of testing the law, of course, a bit too much, then, you can skip on to the fab facts.
She means a kooky man from Spain who finds wearing clothes a tyranny. In other words, a cruel and unfair use of government's power.
Yes, this might be the most political oddball we've had on this podcast. All right, over to our Spanish correspondents,
Nina and Marky Graniena. Take it away, guys.
This is the story of Alejandro Colomar, a 29-year-old computer scientist from Valencia who's starting a revolution against the tyranny of clothes. Alejandro gets a lot of attention these days because, well, he walks around town naked. It's his freedom of expression. He didn't always walk around in the buff. It all started a few years ago. He was working out in the park and he was hot, so he took his shirt off. But someone walking by said, "Hey, you can't do that. You can't just take your shirt off. Get dressed." He was blown away. "What do you mean, get dressed?" When he got home, he looked up the laws in Spain about walking around without a shirt on in public. "Ha!" he said. "Not only can I go shirtless, I can go totally naked." So he tried it out. He started walking around in his small village without clothes on. They called the police on me, tried to make me pay fines, saying I was breaking the law. But he wasn't. In Spain, there aren't any laws saying you have to wear clothes. And what do people say when they see him coming their way? Not a lot, to be honest. Mostly, they just grin and bear it. In Barcelona, this is Nina Graniena and Marky Graniena for Newsy Paloozy.
Grin and bear it. I got that. Good one. Thanks a lot, Nina and Marky.
And it's time to wrap up the podcast with the top 5 facts heard today. Fab fact number 1. The death toll of last week's 7.8 magnitude earthquake in both Turkey and Syria nears 35,000 people. This comes while Syria is in the midst of a civil war that's how old? Nearly 12 years old. Fab fact number 2.
In a twist on the phrase, Big Brother is watching you, both the US and China accuse each other of sending spy balloons over its airspace. What book is that phrase based on? 1984.
Fab fact number 3. In China, squirrels are being used to try and sniff out drug smugglers. How big are these rodents when they're born? Only about an inch long.
Adorable.
Fab fact number 4.
And the word rodent actually comes from the Latin word rodere, which means what? To gnaw.
Fab fact number 5. A man in Spain who rejects the tyranny of clothes walks naked in the streets because there's no law saying he can't. What is tyranny? A cruel and unfair use of the government's power. And don't forget, if you want to test yourself later on, go on to our website, to the Lucky Dip blog page, and you'll find all the quizzes there, so you can test yourself any old time. It's newsypooloozy.com. That's POOLOOZI. And take this quiz online
In your own time. And that almost brings us to the end of this episode of Newsy Paloozy.
But first, a huge shout out to Saffron Barnes, who has sent us the sweetest email ever. She says,
I love your podcast and listen to it every night to get to sleep. Not that it's boring. In fact, I'm listening to one now as I'm writing this. I found your podcast on Coco Sleep. And my first episode was the Pink Color Indian Festivals last year. I've heard all about them. Thank you so much.
oh, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Saffron, for taking the time to write in. What about you guys? Come on, send us a message or...
Tell your friends about us too.
Yeah, all that jazz.
Okay, we'll see you next week in the happy, splashy, giant Newsy Paloozy.
Woo!